There. Ooh, yeah, that's it. Thank you. I don't know if you need that, but I do. Oh, of course. I feel like I should say, hit it, Mo. Welcome all on this glorious, hot, what is it, it's like the 6th day of heat? Yeah, something like that. I've never thought I would experience this in Maine, this many days. So, our new world. I am Reverend Elaine Beth Parislua. I'm your interim minister, which means I'm here during your transition. And I love being at First Parish in Portland, where the mission of this congregation is to nurture the spirit, grow in community, and help heal the world. This congregation is a member congregation of the Unitarian Universalist Association of Congregations, which I feel is really important to remind us every week that we recognize what we do here is part of a much larger movement. And we have our unique individual little niche there, but we are part of something quite extraordinary. Each week when we're here, not only do I welcome you all, I also like to mention where we stand, work, play is sacred land. This land belonged to people long before Europeans arrived here. And where our building resides, where we work, where we play, where we build community, where we argue about politics, is the site of human activity for thousands and thousands of years. We remember the member tribes of the Wabanaki Confederacy who lived here. The Penobscot, Passamaquoddy, Maliseet, Micmac, all stewarded this land and sustained it for tens of thousands of years. And their water, their land, their lives were devastated by the arrival of Europeans through disease, through genocide, through theft. And while this acknowledgement doesn't change any of that, what it does, and this is what today's service is about, when we tell the truth, we move forward with new courage, new relationships, new understanding, new honesty, and we can repair the damage and build and restore relationships. So that is why we acknowledge the land. And as we move through history, we'll probably be acknowledging more on Sundays. Maybe there won't be time for anything else but acknowledgments. We'll see. I want to remind you about the candles on the sides. There are candles there for you to light if there is a burden you'd like to lift, a joy you'd like to share. And if there's something you would like me to know about, there's cards, and I will be in touch with you. You can leave a card there, flip it over, and I check for them at the end of the service. But anytime during the music, during the meditation, you're welcome to get up and light a candle. Chalice Circle sign-up is still out on the little round table in the parish hall. If you would like to be part of our small group ministry, which is called Chalice Circles, just put your name and your email out there. We'll be reorganizing those in the fall, and I will keep that list and share it with Barbara DeSaris. Barbara, raise your hand, because she and Kip do a lot of the management of those Chalice Circles. So if you're interested in being part of a smaller group, let us know. I want to especially say welcome to any people who are here for the first time. We try to make our space welcoming, no matter who you are, no matter who you love, no matter what your faith tradition, your culture, where you're from, where you're going. We hope that you'll find something meaningful in today's service. And while our membership coordinator is off for the summer, you can see me if you'd like to learn more about the church or about Unitarian Universalism. One last acknowledgement. There are boards and coloring utensils for our smallest wee ones, or maybe perhaps anyone who needs a distraction during the service. We like to make sure that our families and the wee ones know that they are welcome. All their chortles, all of their movements are part of the future of this congregation, so we will be listening and watching. Now, thank you to Brenda Franey, who's going to begin us with a prelude. Across the generations, we have carried the flame we're about to light. Across the generations, that flame has been tended. Across the not yet, not yet, not yet, Angus. I love that you're ready and able and paying attention. And across the generations, there have been many who have nurtured that flame. This flame comes to us across the hundreds of years that people have been standing for justice, sharing a communion chalice, and creating faith communities that are inclusive. So, we are here for the songs, for the justice, for the community, for sharing the work, and we are here to build something new, something lasting, that will welcome the next generation to tend to the flame. So we are ready for a new day together as we join in the long line of our forebearers to carry the flame forward. Carolyn is going to light our chalice as we share in the unison words printed in your order of service. Love is the doctrine of this church. The quest for truth is its sacrament, and service is our prayer. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek truth in love, to help one another, to the end that all souls shall grow into harmony with the divine. Oh, I forgot the hymn. It gave you time to get up here. Yeah, okay. All right, now you may rise in body or spirit, and we will sing number 126, which happens to be my most favorite hymn, O come fount of every blessing. There's a guy who plays this down in the park on the trumpet every week. I love it. Thanks, Ben. Thank you. You may now be seated, and I'm going to guide you in a little bit of a meditation and reflection that's geared to histories. Today's service is about the power of stories. Our stories, individuals, the community stories, Portland stories, the world's stories. Change the story, and you change the world. So I'd like you to take a moment, make yourself comfortable, eyes open or shut, whichever helps you to reflect and go inward. I want you to think of your own life, your story. your journey from its beginnings till now. What does your life reveal to you about your essence, who you are, who you would like to be, who you are becoming? Breathe in, look in. And listen to these words by Stanley Kunitz as you reflect. I have walked through many lives, some of them my own, and I am not who I was. Though some principle of being abides, from which I struggle not to stray. When you look inward, is there a thread, a principle, a narrative, a fear, a loss? When I look behind as I am compelled to look, before I can gather strength to proceed on my journey, I see the milestones dwindling toward the horizon and the slow fires trailing from abandoned campsites. How shall each heart be reconciled to its feast of losses? I turn, exalting somewhat with my will intact to go where I need to go. Though I lack the art to decipher it, no doubt the next chapter in my book of transformations is already written. We are not done with our changes. In this moment of blessed silence and reflection, each week we have an opportunity to turn our hearts and our minds to the inside, to refresh them from the world around us, to gain new insight, to rest just for a moment. See who you are. Feel for your thread that carries you from moment to moment, year to year. Allow the inner magic of who you are and always have been to be revealed, to inspire your courage, strengthen you for the journey, expand your capacity for gratitude, compassion. Always when we seek to go inward, it is so that we can return to the world to help and not to hinder. to heal and not do harm, and to serve the greatest good for all. May we find that path. So may it be. Amen, and blessed be. You may stay seated for Spirit of Life. I thought you all just knew that, yes. Thank you, Brenda. As it happens some weeks, by the time I finish writing the sermon, my choice of readings changes from what I put in the order of service earlier in the week. So today I'm going to share with you Sycamore by Wendell Berry instead of the circled one. In the place that is my own place, whose earth I am shaped in and must bear, there is an old tree growing, a great sycamore that is a wondrous healer of itself. Fences have been tied into it, nails driven into it, hacks and whittles cut in it, the lightning has even burned it. There is no year that it flourished that it has not been harmed. There is a hollow in it that is its death, though its living brims whitely at the very lips of all that darkness and flows outward. Over all its scars has come the seamless white of that bark. It bears the gnarls of its history healed over. It has risen to a strange perfection in the arc and the bending of its long growth. It has gathered all accidents unto its purpose, and it has become the intention and the radiance of its long fate. It is a fact, sublime, mystical, unassailable. In all the country, there is no other like it. I love it as I have seldom loved anything. And I recognize in it a principle, an indwelling, the same as itself and greater, that I would be ruled by. I see that it stands in its place, feeds upon it, and is fed upon. It is native, it is maker, it is creation. How many of you have seen that sycamore, a sycamore with those big holes and the white that brims out around the hole? Just stunning. I think it's sycamores that lines in Cambridge right along the Charles River. There's like a dozen of them. And I wondered if that's what Wendell Berry saw when he was there. How many of you could feel those wires being cut into you, or those nails being hacked into you, or your brimming white over your healing as you did your meditation? How many of you during the meditation just affirmed that you hate meditations? I know you're out there. But I will keep introducing them for those moments and those ones whose hearts find solace in that quiet. I once knew of a woman, I think I heard from it was either Moth Radio Hour or it was one of the other public radio stations that tells people stories. And there was a woman named Anna who came on the radio mourning the fact that she was the mother of 3 daughters, and that's probably why it caught my attention. And all of her daughters were growing out of the house, and she was in that transitional moment where she had an empty nest. And she had stopped working to raise her children. She had not finished some of the programs that she had started in terms of her education, and she was sort of terrified by what was going to happen to her now that she didn't have the focus of these daughters to surround her life around. And so she sat in quiet reflection and meditation, sad, empty nest, and remembered that when she was 21, she had tried out and gotten on a dance team. And it was for a group called the Washington Bullets, who I think were associated with a sports team, and they were dancers, and she had quit her clerical job and just become a dancer. And then she married shortly after, stopped dancing, had her babies, raised her children. So here she was, starting over, and she saw an ad in the paper for what was then called the now Washington Wizards. Those dancers were coming back over the age of 50 to duplicate what they'd have before. And they actually formed a group called the Wisdom Dancers. So all these seniors from 56 to 86 are out there stepping it up, and Anna decided she was going back to dancing. Now, if she hadn't taken a moment to look back, to remember who she was, she might never have found that delightful group to join in. And some of them were actually the same people she knew when she was 21. So she was thrilled. It's important to look back. How many of you watch Henry Louis Gates, Finding Your Roots? Do you remember recently there was a middle-aged African-American woman who came in bereft because she was unable to let go of this oppressive feeling of having been enslaved. She felt she wanted to move out of that identity. She wanted to make her peace with it so she could be courageous and whatever she needed to do in her life to rid herself of that internalized oppression. And through her work with Mr. Gates, she discovered that she was not the ancestor of enslaved people. She was actually directly an ancestor of Queen Nzinga Mbundo, who was that wonderful queen that was fearless in fighting the Portuguese and taking the slaves out of Ghana. And she was one of the historic women of Central Africa back in the 1500s. So this woman discovered a whole new identity for herself. Her roots inspired her courage, her activism, and she had a new knowledge of herself that lifted that weight of an untruth. And she was able to claim her real truth and her real identity, building her confidence and shifting her relationship with the world. We have all walked through many lives, some of them our own. And some principle of being abides, from which we must struggle not to stray. History is an essential factor of 12-step programs. The fourth step, fearless moral inventory. Gotta look back. You have to remember. You have to search yourself for your foibles, your strengths, the relationships, things the campfires that you've burned behind you. It's probably one of the most crucial steps, and also the most difficult on the road to recovery. What could be scarier than promising to make a complete moral inventory of ourselves? Everything we've done without fear, without holding back. Recovery is only possible when you learn to take responsibility for your story, your narrative, without shame, without guilt, with awareness, so that there's no skeletons or hidden things in closets waiting to jump out at you, grab you, dismantle you, scare you, distract you from what you know you must do. Truth-telling is essential to mental, physical, emotional health. It's the key to a vibrant future. So this theme of we are living history right now is not just for this institution. It's for each one of us as individuals. For the church, it is essential. It's sort of like the truth-telling we start with our acknowledgement. I like to think of Germany. It is sort of a model for truth-telling for the rest of the world's nations who have histories of atrocities and genocide. You contrast Germany to the US and Britain, who are still mired in their own apologetics for colonialism, for ignorance about enslavement, refusal to name the history and just own it. When you're in Germany, you see the markers on the homes of the Jews who were taken out of their homes and killed. You see the places that they lived, that they worked. There's markers reminding Germans of what had happened, how it happened. And they see every day the truth of their story. Now, it hasn't made them completely free of all of those personalities and politics and practices that still exist there, that brought Nazism to its rise. But they have truth-telling at every corner, so they have awareness to look out for its rise again. When I was in Wilmington, North Carolina, I happened to be there at the same time that they were finishing a project. In 2000, they uncovered a massacre that had happened in 1898, and it's historically marked as the one and only successful coup in the United States. There was a thriving integrated community of black and white businesses. There was a black mayor who was voted in to lead the city. There was educators, doctors, lawyers, politicians of both races that worked together in community things and kept their practices right next to each other until November 10th in 1898, when a group of white supremacist Democrats overthrew the local Wilmington government. They killed that mayor. Then they were led by an unofficial fusionist, they called it, party of Republicans and populists that made up both the white supremacy and the people in the city who were against the rise of the black middle class. And when I was there, they completed the monument that they were building to commemorate that. It was 18 figures that represented the 18 leaders that were assassinated. And it was in this beautiful arced sphere, and then there was a garden planted in the middle. And the commissioner who dedicated it said, "It is great when you acknowledge your history. Having grown up here and being a chief of the city, I went to elementary school and high school, and I never heard about this coup. It's amazing how it was just eliminated from public education all these years, and how different my view of our city is now that we commemorate and remember and have done justice to those people who were killed. I was there, and since I was there in 2007 to see that dedication, they have built more and more monuments. They've restored the place where the newspaper was burned and the publisher and editor was killed. And they've commemorated, very much like in Germany, their truth-telling. And they've passed a resolution to continue that so that they can confront and eliminate the voting restrictions and the Jim Crow laws that so damaged them after that. James Baldwin wrote, "The great force of history comes from the fact that we carry it within us, are unconsciously controlled by it in so many ways. And history is literally present in all that we do. Not everything that is faced can be changed, but nothing can change until we face it." That last quote is on the entrance to the National Museum of Black History in Washington. If you have not been, do not miss it. I was there for 5 hours and I only got off the first floor. It's just an amazing truth-telling space in a way that I wish we could all learn to tell the truth without rancor, without blame, without judgment, just honesty, objectivity. This is what happened. These are the consequences. One of the facts that I learned, which has changed my whole sense of enslavement and our own anti-racism work, was a quote about, on one side of the room it says before 1400, and then it says after 1400. How many people know that prior to 1400, all cultures enslaved people? It was a normal part of Asian, African, European life. But it wasn't forever. It was the consequence of winning a war, losing a war, winning a legal battle, losing a legal battle, and slaves were not considered bad. Eventually, almost everybody ended up a slave at some point, but it was a temporary, sort of an indentured servitude thing until you worked off whatever crime or whatever loss, war, or something else happened. But there was no shame in it, and there was no degrading of people who had been slaves or were slaves. It was only in 1400, when the first Africans were captured for profit and enslavement, that there needed to be a narrative that made it okay for Christians to steal and enslave people. So they had to dehumanize, and they had to distort the truth, not only to live with their own conscience, but to make it so it was legal. And that's when race became defined. That's when our coloration of skin tones was institutionalized as less than. The darker you were, the worse you were. And so that piece of history for me was huge. Think about how that shifts some of what we think of in terms of our own history of enslavement and about the trade. It gives a whole other background to the story. Not everything that is faced can be changed, but nothing can be changed until it is faced. I have this book on interim ministries, and there's a chapter on history, and in it, one of the authors, Lauren Mead, writes, "Every congregation lives in a dialogue with its past. Every congregation is strengthened immeasurably by its history, and every congregation has also been deeply wounded by its history. Churches are both the heirs and the victims of their stories. So identifying the steps of how we go through our history and looking at our history is an essential part of our interim. And that's what the transition team and I are going to be focusing on in the fall. We are talking about how we will review our history. We're going to be partnering with the Atlantic Black Box to look at our own history around enslavement. We're going to be looking at lots of the history. Angus has sent us a document about the 1920s and 30s, what was happening during the Vietnam War. And I think you said that Christina had done a sermon on that as well? Yeah? So we'll be looking at all those pieces with the hope and the intention of identifying where this institution was in 1674. How did it influence Portland? What are the pieces of the story that amplify the importance of this institution in the city? What are the pieces we need to make peace with, heal from, tell the truth about? First Parish needs to look back, reflect on, and appreciate its story. Only in knowing your story can you clearly identify who you are, where you've been, where you are now, and the direction in which you want your future to lead you. And that is core to searching for and calling the very best next minister. So be watching. We'll be opening, I hope, some fun events where you'll all get a chance to think about the history, learn about the history, maybe research some history. And then I hope what we'll do is we'll create a service and a ritual around marking that history from beginning to now and gaining your insights on how you feel, what you want to do about that history, where you want to, and how you want to archive it in your story, so that together we can move on to the next place. And we'll also use it probably for some visioning and planning about the future. So if we do the history in the fall, there'll be something more for us to do in the spring while you're awaiting the results of that search. No pressure, Jake. The greatest stories about history we are actually living right in this moment. We are living history being made. Who knows how people in the future will look back at this moment in our U.S. history? How will it turn out? We are at such a pivotal moment. We have the conflict of two very competing realities. And while some of us see the truth being exposed and see the realities being shaped and the truth being the untruth, there are many people in this country who do not see that. And we live together in a nation. We will be voting again in the nation. So it is critical that we understand this moment in our history, so that we can support the truth, understand the truth, and do what we can to expand the realities of that truth. We carry in us everything that has happened in the past, and we carry it into the future in whatever shape it lives in us, truth or not truth, and we perpetuate whatever we carry forward. So I encourage you all to look deep within, to find your own truth, to watch around you in the city and in our nation for moments to shed light on the truth, however small. I'm calling my brother this afternoon. And do what you can to open a conversation, to tell the truth, so that we not only live the history of this moment, but we help shape it going forward. The great force of history comes from the fact that we carry it within us, are unconsciously controlled by it in many ways, and history is literally present in all that we do. Not everything that is faced can be changed, but nothing can be changed until it is faced. May we be wise. May we be courageous. May we be honest. Now, I invite you to sing and rise in body or spirit to sing out praises for the journey. It is number 295 in no, we changed it. I didn't change it on my paper. It's 121. We'll build a land. Scared you, didn't I? So those of you who would like to, I just changed the words "we're sisters and brothers anointed by God." It rhymes perfectly to say siblings together instead. So you can change that in your hymnal if you'd like to, and then I will call it out the next time we sing it. Thank you all. We will now receive the offering. Each week we ask for your generous contributions to strengthen and sustain this historic institution. All your gifts are appreciated, small and large, of time, treasure, and talent. And thank you. Thank you for your generosity. I think we're going to let Ben usher next week. I wanted to start a new tradition for me while I'm here, to take this opportunity right after the offering to thank all the people that make Sundays happen. First of all, I want to thank our ushers, Carolyn and Jake and Harvey, for their efforts. I know how hard it is to find ushers, and so thank you for your efforts. I want to thank Brenda for her incredible music talents. She has been so generous with us in sharing her skills and selfless with her time. Devin, our technology king, you do such a great job in short notice. Thank you, Devin. We could not do this without you. And John, our security guard. He's here every Sunday just about, and he makes us all feel much safer and more secure. And of course, Mo, who does everything else. So each week, I want you to be aware and grateful, because gratitude expands us inside and out. The closing words are by Dina Markova, with a little embellishment. Across the generation, this flame has come to us. We have sung the songs now, spoken the words, shared the work to begin building and imagining something new and lasting. We are ready for a new day together. And as we journey into the future, may we learn to open in love, so all the doors and windows of our bodies and hearts swing wide open on their hinges. May we learn to give ourselves with both hands to all the work that needs our attention, to lift each other up on our shoulders, to carry one another along. May holiness move in us so that we pay attention to its small voice of truth and honor its light within each one of us. We will now join in the unison benediction and extinguishing of that historic flame. It's printed in your order of service. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Thank you. And now enjoy Brenda's postlude. Thank you all. Coffee.